The next part of our tour, arranged in advance, was a trip to Nepal and Kathmandu, specifically the city in Nepal that had the airport and was closest to a preserve called Tiger Tops. And I'll tell you about Tiger Tops after we get there. We went to the airport and we had arranged, the tour had arranged a flight from the Ganges River to Nepal and Kathmandu. And like all flying arrangements in India, they rarely leave on time, sometimes not even the day they're supposed to. And when we got to the airport, our flight to Kathmandu was off schedule, and we had to sit around in this strange little airport waiting for our plane to come in, and that was scheduled to fly us to Nepal. It took a few hours, but finally the plane showed up and we were able to take off. I think, as I recall, it was a flight of maybe 2 hours, and from the plane you could see the Himalaya mountains in the distance that we were heading for, and finally we came to rest in Kathmandu. I think Kathmandu, the name kind of indicates or gives you some idea of what kind of city that was. Very, very old, very strange, very different from anything we'd seen in India or any other place on our trip. When the plane landed, we had been told that the preserve we were going to stay at for a couple of days, called Tiger Tops, was within 20 or 30 miles of the airport. But Tiger Tops did not allow any noise or any motors, and everything about it was native-like. No cars were allowed there, and so our trip from the airport to Tiger Tops was by elephant, and there were probably about 16 of us who were going to Tiger Tops, and that would take 4 elephants with 4 people on each elephant. On top of each elephant, there's a platform called a howdah, and you sit in the 4 corners, one person in each corner of this implantation on the back of the elephant, which has leather girdings going through the platform and under the elephant's belly, with a couple of pillows under you. It wasn't too uncomfortable a ride, but it certainly was unusual to think of asking the elephant to kneel down so that we could climb up on their back and into the howdah. The man who drives the elephant or rides it or directs it sits on the top of its skull with his feet around the neck, and communicates verbally to the elephant, who understands several hundred words and commands. And we were going to ride for the 20 miles on the elephant's backs to get to Tiger Tops. Very, very different and exciting beginning to the trip. We were beguiled by being on top of the elephant and being fairly comfortable and feeling safe, and walking through forests that had been, there were areas that were fairly open. It wasn't like going through a jungle, more like grassy terrain with some trees. So it was a comfortable and nice way to travel, and took about an hour and a half or so, as elephants move fairly quickly on that kind of terrain, and till we got to Tiger Tops. What was most interesting was when we came to our living quarters. They were on the second floor of the building. The rooms were up there on the second floor, and when we saw it, the balconies, there was something that looked like decorations running around it. And when we got closer, we realized that these were hot water bottles of different colors hanging on the walls outside the bedrooms. And we were told then that because there was no heat in the buildings, no natural heat, when we went to sleep in the evenings, the hot water bottles would be filled with hot water and put in our beds to take the chill out of them. What a crazy idea, but they had to do that kind of thing because they didn't have any motors running, and certainly no heat of any kind. As a matter of fact, they had wells that had been drilled into the ground, into the earth, and the water was pumped out by foot strength. They had people sitting on top of the wells, like riding a bicycle, to pump the water up, and they would pump it into tanks from which it would flow to the various areas that needed water, like lavatories and the kitchen and the shower rooms, etc. When we got to the quarters, our bedroom quarters, which were on the second floor, that was just about the same height as we were on, sitting on top of the elephants. So we didn't get off the elephants as much as the elephant would go up to the side of the building, and we would step off from our houses onto the balcony. Very interesting taxi ride. Anyway, we had blankets and hot water bottles, and we slept fairly well. And we were told that the time to take showers was late in the afternoon because the water would be too cold until the sun had warmed it. And so when we got up in the morning after breakfast, we got onto our elephants and started through the woods looking for rhinos. It was called tiger tops, but during the day you never saw tigers since tigers only came out in the evening. And then they had to be lured to the facility by live bait. And so that was one of the ugly parts of this visit, in that if you wanted to see a tiger, it was only at the expense of having a kid tied up to a stake and attacked by a tiger. A lot of the women didn't want to see it, but I went, and I don't remember whether Babe went or not. In general, it was a very interesting place to visit. On the first morning that we were out, Babe had a sweater that she had around her neck, and it got loose and fell to the ground. She mentioned to them Mahout, who is the name of what all the drivers are called, Mahouts, and he stopped the elephant and in a few words told him about the sweater that Babe had dropped. The elephant swung its trunk around the back, picked up the sweater, and handed it to Babe. That was absolutely fantastic occurrence. And the elephant and the mahout seemed to understand each other fairly well. It was amazing how much the elephant understood from the mahout's directions. We continued during the day on our elephant march. We saw several rhinos, and in most cases the rhinos would walk away from the elephants because the elephants were so big and powerful, but they didn't run away. Like, we're not afraid of you, we just give you the right of way. Except when we came upon a rhino who had a calf with her. She stood her grounds, and we had to go around her. In other words, leave the path, find another route because she wasn't moving, and she would attack the elephant rather than leave her child in any danger. Basically, that's the story. We did that for 2 days, and then our stay at Tiger Tops was over. They had a shop there selling clothes for men and women. I bought a shirt, and Babe got a shirt that she wore very proudly for the next over the next 20 years. I shouldn't say she wore it for 20 years, but on occasions, and she really enjoyed it. At the end of the stay, we had our elephants walk back to the airport, where we found hundreds of people waiting to see us and our plane take off. Anyway, we had a delightful ride on elephants and saw wonderful sights of tigers and rhinos, and we were headed back to India. The next part of our trip was a journey to the island of Ceylon. Ceylon, famous for growing Indian tea, and a place that I was happy to go to and eager to go to, because as I told you, when I was a little kid in my father's grocery store, he had told me that, and showed me on a globe where Ceylon was and where the tea came from.